Stand up. Yes, right now. I want you to actually do it, if you can. Put your phone down for a second. Find a wall nearby. If you're driving or holding something hot, just imagine this instead. Now stand on one leg. Don't move. Just stay there. What you think you're doing right now is balance. But what's actually happening inside your body is far more complex than anything you consciously experience. In fact, in these few seconds, your body is running a control system so advanced that it rivals the most sophisticated engineering systems humans have ever built. And you are completely unaware of it. It starts in your foot. The moment you lift one leg, your entire body weight shifts onto a single small patch of skin. That small area becomes the only connection between you and the ground. But that patch is not passive. It is alive with sensors, thousands of microscopic receptors constantly measuring pressure, stretch, and force with extreme precision. These sensors don't feel in the emotional sense. They calculate physics. They detect how your weight shifts by fractions of a millimeter, how pressure changes from one part of the foot to another, and how the ground reacts back against you. All of this information is instantly sent upward through ultra-fast nerve fibers traveling at speeds of up to 100 meters per second. Their only job is to answer one question with absolute precision. Where exactly is your body in relation to the ground right now? But that's only one system. Your skin is also working at the same time, not just sensing pressure, but detecting texture, vibration, temperature differences, and even microscopic changes in contact. Every part of your foot is acting like a high-resolution sensor array, constantly updating a live map of your position in space. All of this data travels upward through your leg like a continuous stream. And while that is happening, something even more complex is going on inside your head. Deep within your skull, hidden inside dense bone, lies a small fluid-filled system made of 3 looped canals. Inside these canals are tiny moving particles and sensitive hair-like structures. When your head shifts even slightly, the fluid lags behind due to inertia, bending these microscopic hairs and instantly generating electrical signals. This is your inner ear balance system. It is not metaphorical. It is a biological gyroscope. One part of it detects rotation, another detects linear movement, and together they constantly inform your brain whether you are falling, tilting, or staying upright. The signals from this system reach your brain in just a few milliseconds, fast enough to correct movement before you even realize anything is wrong. And yet, even this is not the full picture. Because all of these systems, your foot, your skin, your inner ear, are sending data to a single structure in your brain that quietly controls everything without your awareness. It takes all the incoming information, compares it against predicted movement, and instantly corrects errors before they become visible actions. It is constantly asking, what should happen next? And adjusting your muscles before you ever feel unstable. So while you are standing there thinking you are simply balancing on one leg, your body is actually performing rapid-fire predictions, corrections, and calculations thousands of times per second. And the most surprising part is this: you are not in control of most of it. It is happening beneath conscious thought, automatically, continuously, and perfectly timed. Now, the real question becomes not how you are standing, but how you are not falling. And the answer to that lies deeper than most people ever imagine. Now, the real question becomes not how you are standing, but how you are not falling. And the answer to that begins deeper than most people ever imagine. Because what you are experiencing right now is not a single system, but several independent systems constantly competing, correcting, and cooperating without ever asking for your attention. Let's go deeper into the first one, your body's ground sensing network. Every time your foot stays on the floor, it is not just touching the ground, it is actively reading it. The sole of your foot contains layers of mechanoreceptors that behave like biological measurement instruments. Some detect constant pressure, some detect tiny shifts, others respond only when something changes rapidly, like a microslip or a vibration you would never consciously notice. What makes this even more incredible is that these receptors are not passive sensors waiting for instruction. They are constantly firing, constantly updating, and constantly sending streams of raw physical data upward through your nervous system. This data travels through ultra-fast nerve fibers that function like dedicated high-speed cables. And these cables are not general-purpose communication lines. Each one is specialized. Some only report stretch in muscle fibers. Others report tension in tendons. Others report exact joint angles. Together, they form what scientists call proprioception. But in reality, it is your internal sense of geometry. It is how your brain knows where your body is in space without looking at it. And here is the part most people never realize. Your brain is not watching your body. It is predicting it. Before you even begin to wobble, your nervous system is already calculating what you are about to do next. It is not reacting to instability, it is forecasting it. Every micro adjustment in your ankle or knee is part of a predictive loop that updates hundreds of times per second. But this system alone is not enough, because your body is constantly fighting gravity, and gravity never stops working against you. So your spinal cord steps in. Inside your spine, there are reflex pathways that do not wait for the brain to approve decisions. If your body starts to lean too far in one direction, sensory signals from your muscles can directly trigger motor responses in less than a fraction of a second. No thought, no awareness, no delay. This is not a backup system. It is a real-time emergency correction loop. If your calf muscle stretches too quickly because you are beginning to fall backward, the signal never needs to reach your conscious mind. It fires directly back into the muscle, causing an immediate contraction that pulls you forward again. You don't feel the correction. You only feel stability. And while all of this is happening in your lower body, something far more complex is beginning to integrate everything higher up. Because now the brain is involved. Not the part you use for thinking in words or decisions, but deeper structures that exist purely for coordination. These regions are not interested in ideas. They are interested in prediction accuracy. Their only job is to minimize error between what should happen and what is actually happening in your body. And even that is only part of the system. Because while your feet are measuring the ground and your spine is correcting reflexes, another system entirely is beginning to take control of orientation itself, and it is located not in your limbs or spine, but inside your head. This is where balance stops being mechanical and starts becoming spatial. And to understand that, you have to go inside your inner ear. Inside your skull, hidden in dense bone, there is a fluid-filled structure containing 3 looped canals positioned in different planes. These canals are not random. They are oriented in perfect geometric alignment with 3-dimensional space. When you move, the fluid inside these canals does not move instantly. It lags behind because of inertia. That delay causes tiny hair-like sensors to bend. And that bending creates electrical signals that represent rotational movement. This is how your body detects turning, tilting, and angular acceleration without any visual input. And at the same time, nearby structures detect linear motion and gravitational direction using tiny crystal-like particles that shift when your head tilts. This system is so precise that it can detect movements smaller than what your eyes can register. But even this is still only one layer of the full system, because all of these signals, foot, spine, and inner ear, are about to converge into one of the most powerful prediction engines in biology. And what it does next is the reason you are still standing. Not because you are balancing, but because something inside you is correcting reality before you ever realize it has changed. And that is where the system becomes truly extraordinary. Because now we are entering the part where your brain stops being reactive and starts becoming predictive. And that changes everything. Your body is no longer just reacting to movement. It is now simulating it. Inside your brain, especially in a structure known for coordination rather than conscious thought, every signal coming from your feet, spine, and inner ear is being combined into one continuous model of your position in space. But this model is not a static picture. It is a living prediction that updates faster than your awareness can keep up with. What your brain is doing right now is essentially asking a constant question. If nothing changes in the next fraction of a second, where will this body be? And then it answers that question before reality has time to disagree. This is why you don't feel the actual process of balance. You only feel the result of it. By the time your conscious mind registers instability, the correction has already been made. The system responsible for this prediction is built from feedback loops. Every movement you make produces a signal. That signal is compared against what your brain expected to happen. If there is a mismatch, that difference becomes an error signal, and that error is immediately used to adjust future movement. Not later, not after analysis, instantly. This is not decision-making in the way we normally think about it. There is no pause, no reflection, no choice. It is continuous correction at a biological level. And yet, even this prediction system depends heavily on something you never notice, timing. Because everything in your balance system is fighting against delay. Signals from your feet take time to travel. Signals from your inner ear take time to process. Even the fastest reflexes in your spine are still delayed by fractions of milliseconds. And in a system as sensitive as human balance, those fractions matter. So the brain does something extremely clever. Instead of waiting for information to arrive, it begins predicting what that information should be. If the prediction and the real signal match, you stay stable. If they don't, correction begins immediately. This is the hidden architecture behind every second you spend standing, walking, or even shifting your weight slightly. But there is still another layer we haven't discussed. Because balance is not just about sensing and correcting. It is also about orientation in space. And for that, your brain relies heavily on a system inside your inner ear that functions almost like a biological navigation instrument. Deep within the bone structure of your skull lies a fluid-filled network of 3-looped canals arranged in 3 dimensions. Each canal is positioned at a different angle, allowing your body to detect rotation in any direction. When your head moves, the fluid inside these canals does not move instantly. It resists motion due to inertia. That delay causes microscopic hair cells to bend, and that bending generates electrical signals. Those signals represent angular movement, turning, tilting, spinning. At the same time, nearby structures detect linear acceleration using tiny mineral-like crystals that shift when gravity or motion changes. These crystals press against sensory hairs and create signals that tell your brain which direction is down. Together, these systems form a complete internal model of orientation. But what makes it truly remarkable is speed. These signals reach your brain in just milliseconds, faster than conscious thought, faster than awareness. And once they arrive, they do not act alone. They merge with data from your feet and your spinal reflexes, feeding into the same predictive system that is constantly estimating your future position. At this point, your body is no longer simply reacting to the present. It is actively constructing the next moment before it arrives. And that is the key reason you remain upright. Even when your posture is unstable, your weight shifts unexpectedly, or the ground beneath you is uneven. Because stability is not a single action. It is a continuous negotiation between prediction and reality. But there is still one final layer left, one that most people never think about at all. Because all of this sensory input, all of this prediction, all of this correction is ultimately controlled by a system that does not just coordinate movement. It learns from it. And that learning process is what determines whether you remain stable today or become unstable years later. Now we reach the part of the system that most people never think about, even though it decides something extremely important, whether you will stay stable for the next 10 seconds or the next 10 years. Because everything we've talked about so far is not just a real-time control system. It is also a learning system. Your brain is constantly updating itself based on every single movement you make. Every tiny correction your body performs while standing on one leg is stored as data. Not in words, not in memories you can recall, but in changes to neural circuits that control balance, timing, and muscle coordination. This means balance is not fixed. It is trained continuously. Every time you stand, walk, turn, or recover from a small wobble, your brain is adjusting its internal model of how your body behaves under gravity. Over time, it becomes incredibly efficient. So efficient that most corrections happen before you even notice there was a problem. But there is a hidden consequence to this system. If the system is not challenged, it starts to degrade. The body is built on a simple principle: use it or lose it. The neural connections responsible for precise balance are maintained by demand. If the demand decreases, the system slowly reduces its sensitivity. This is why aging affects balance in such a subtle but dangerous way. It does not fail suddenly, it fades. The signals from the feet become slightly weaker. The reaction time of spinal reflexes becomes slightly slower. The inner ear structures lose some of their sharpness. Tiny crystals shift less cleanly. Hair cells become less responsive. Nerve conduction slows down by just a few milliseconds. And those few milliseconds matter more than they should, because balance is not forgiving. A system that depends on prediction cannot tolerate delay. A small lag in feedback means the brain receives slightly outdated information, and outdated information leads to slightly incorrect corrections. At first, the difference is invisible: a minor sway, a small hesitation, a moment of instability that corrects itself. But over time, these small errors accumulate. The body begins to rely more on vision because the deeper systems become less reliable. But vision is the slowest system in the entire balance network. It is not designed for micro-corrections. It is designed for awareness, not precision. So when the faster systems weaken, the brain starts depending on a slower one. And that is when stability becomes fragile. Now, even something as simple as turning your head quickly or walking on an uneven surface can produce a mismatch between prediction and reality. The correction arrives slightly too late. The body overadjusts, then corrects again. A small oscillation begins to appear. This is what people experience as unsteadiness. Not a failure, but a timing problem. Meanwhile, deep inside the brain, the cerebellum is still doing its job. It is still trying to predict movement and reduce error. But now the data it receives is noisier, less precise, more delayed. And prediction becomes harder, because prediction is only as good as the information it receives. What makes this even more important is that most people never notice this degradation until a threshold is crossed. The system compensates silently for years. Then suddenly, a simple misstep becomes a fall. But the fall was not sudden. The system was changing long before it was visible. And this brings us back to something important you experienced at the very beginning. Standing on one leg, Because that simple action is actually a full stress test of all these systems working together. It forces your brain to rely on fast reflexes, precise sensory input, and real-time prediction all at once. If any one part weakens, the entire system becomes less stable. Not broken, just less precise. And this is the key insight. Balance is not a single skill. It is the final output of multiple systems working in perfect timing. Feet measuring pressure, muscles adjusting tension, the inner ear detecting motion, the spinal cord reacting instantly, the brain predicting outcomes before they happen. All of it happening simultaneously, all of it invisible. So when you think you are simply standing still, what is actually happening is far more extraordinary. You are surviving gravity in real time. And the reason you are not falling is not because you are stable. It is because your body is constantly preventing instability before it becomes visible. But the moment that timing begins to drift, even slightly, everything changes. And that is the hidden truth behind something as simple as standing on one leg. If this made you see your own body differently, then you already understand the real point of this system and how much is happening inside you without you ever noticing. If you want more deep breakdowns like this, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the next one. There's one final layer to this that changes how you should think about everything you've just heard. Because up until now, we've been talking about balance as if it's a system that simply reacts, predicts, and corrects. But in reality, it is also constantly being tuned in the background like a machine that quietly adjusts its own sensitivity based on how much you use it. And this is where things become even more interesting. Your brain does not treat balance as something fixed. It treats it as something that must stay calibrated. That calibration depends entirely on experience. Every step you take, every stumble you recover from, every moment you stand still without thinking about it, it all contributes to how finely tuned your system becomes. But here's the problem. Modern life slowly reduces the demand placed on this system. We sit more, we move in predictable patterns, we avoid unstable surfaces, we reduce the kind of random physical challenges that once forced the brain to constantly update its balance model. And when that happens, something subtle begins to change. The system does not break. It simply becomes less sharp. The signals from the feet become slightly less informative because the brain stops prioritizing them as heavily. The inner ear still works, but the brain begins to rely on it less. The spinal reflexes are still there, but they are not triggered as often in real-world situations that demand precision. It is not damage, it is disuse. And the brain, being extremely efficient, always optimizes for what it uses most. If a signal becomes less important, it gets weighted less in the overall calculation. So over time, your balance system becomes more dependent on slower, less precise inputs. This is why something as simple as walking on uneven ground can suddenly feel more difficult for some people as they get older. Not because the ground has changed, but because the internal prediction system has lost some of its resolution. And this is also why recovery from imbalance becomes slower. The brain still corrects errors, but the correction is no longer as immediate or as accurate as it once was. Now step back and look at what this really means. Standing on one leg, something you just did or imagined doing, is not just a test of strength. It is a full demonstration of how well your nervous system is calibrated to gravity at this exact moment in your life. It reveals the speed of your reflexes, the quality of your sensory feedback, the precision of your internal predictions, and the efficiency of the communication between all these systems. It is a snapshot of your nervous system in real time. And the most important part is this. It is trainable, because the same system that can lose precision can also regain it. The nervous system is not static, it is adaptive. With the right kind of demand, it sharpens itself again. The signals become clearer, the timing becomes faster, the corrections become smoother. Balance is not something you either have or don't have. It is something you maintain through interaction with the environment. Every unstable surface you walk on, every small correction you make without thinking, every moment you force your body to adjust in real time, it all feeds back into the system that keeps you upright. So when you stand still, what looks like doing nothing is actually the result of constant training, constant prediction, and constant adjustment happening beneath awareness. And now you understand something most people never think about. You are not balancing on one leg. You are running a real-time biological control system that is constantly preventing you from falling into chaos. And it has been working silently your entire life. If you want more deep explorations like this, consider subscribing and joining the next breakdown.